Imagine being banned from the biggest competition in the world because your teammate decided to do something crazy, or because some dudes wanted to play COD in real life. These are the 7 countries that have been banned from the World Cup, and first up, Mexico was banned after they were caught cheating. Cachirulas. It's not a sport in Mexico, it's a controversial story. See, this term in football means using players who are not part of a team's matchday squad to compete in official competitions. The idea was to deceive the referee and to do this. The catch-all players usually used fake names or stole other players' identities just so they could play. It was going great until 1988, when FIFA busted this little operation. At the 1988 CONCACAF Under-20 tournament, FIFA found that Mexico had used 4 overage players for the competition, guys they had confirmed were definitely over 20. As a result, they immediately went into action. Mexico wasn't just banned from the competition, they were banned from all international competitions at all age levels, including qualification games for the World Cup in 1990. This ultimately meant they couldn't participate in the competition that year, and it wasn't until 1990 before the Mexican teams could compete at any level in international football. Damn! FIFA was on the same streak over in Africa. They wasted no time in banning Kenya after they found out they couldn't handle a crazy situation. 2021 now, and Kenyan football was having a problem. Nick Mwendwa was the president and leader of the Kenyan Football Federation, or the FKF. But in 2021, news allegedly got out that Mwendwa and his team had been stealing public funds meant to develop the game to their pockets. And as a result, the Kenyan government got involved. They decided to break apart the Kenyan Football Federation and have Mwendwa arrested in the same month. And this is where FIFA got involved. See, over the years, FIFA has made it clear they're an independent body and do not want any form of interference from a country's government. And what this means is the Kenyan government deciding to dissolve the FKF goes against their law. And in turn, they banned Kenya from all forms of international football for 9 months. The ban ultimately affected their World Cup participation in 2022 as well. On the bright side, the ban only lasted 9 months, and after that they were allowed back into the game again. When FIFA decided to ban South Africa though, it was for 30 years. In 2010, South Africa became the first African country to host the World Cup. But you see guys, this was off the back of some pretty harsh experiences in the 90s. It all started in 1956, when a man named Theophilus Donge, who was South Africa's interior minister at the time, outlined South Africa's sports policy. They'd banned all mixed-race sports teams in South Africa, and even demanded that any team who wanted to compete in the country had to send an all-white team. Unfortunately, racism was a big deal back then, and while efforts were being made to kick it out, it was still considered normal in some parts of the world like South Africa. But by the 1960s, all of this changed. FIFA and all international sporting organisations like the Olympic Committee, the Davis Cup and the Cricket Organisation had gotten involved. And they, like the rest of the world, couldn't believe what was going on in South Africa. They acted fast. By 1961, South Africa was officially banned from participating in any international football tournament by FIFA, was banned from the Olympics in 1964, and even from international cricket in 1970. The ban lasted for 30 years. 30! After the apartheid was over, South Africa was officially allowed back into FIFA and international competitions in 1992. But by that point on, they'd missed 8 World Cup editions in that period. On the part of FIFA, that was good looking out. Turns out they've been doing this for years too, as far back as the 1950s. German football during that era was a mixed bag, and that's because FIFA had a ban in place for the German national team back then. The reason was simple too. In the Second World War of 1939 to 1945, Germany played a major role in the world looked like a COD lobby, and by the time it was over, the damages all over the affected countries were a lot. Football suffered as a result too. Most league matches in countries like England, Spain and Italy were suspended because of the Second World War. The World Cup didn't hold in 1942 and 1946, and by the time it returned in 1950, Germany wasn't allowed to participate, because they'd almost ended up destroying the world. It wasn't only the Germans too. Down in Asia, another country was getting banned by FIFA for the same reasons: Japan. Now, in Japan's case, they were banned from the World Cup by FIFA because of the role they played in their alliance with Germany. Japan attacked the United States Pearl Harbor, invaded China, and even invaded British India. With all these types of crimes, when the game was finally resumed back in 1950 and Germany got banned, it's almost as if the Japanese knew what was coming next. They were equally banned from the competition as well. Told you FIFA had been doing this from way back, and they're still doing it today too. At the 2022 World Cup, an exclusive name from Europe was missing. Just 4 years before that time, Russia had set the world alight. The 2018 World Cup was a spectacle. The best footballing countries in the world all gathered in Russia when Russia hosted the World Cup. But in 2022, the hosts of the previous edition were missing. Why? Because they were banned. In February 2022, Russia invaded Ukraine and sent the world into chaos. It's crazy now because both countries are independent states, and yet, according to the Russians, they felt they had legal rights and claims to invade Ukraine and threatened to go to war with anyone who tried to stop them. This war ultimately affected football too. It was sad for Ukraine, man. Teams like Shakhtar Donetsk and Dynamo Kyiv could no longer compete for the threat of getting attacked during matches, and ultimately FIFA had to step in. Once again, just like it was in the 1940s, war was threatening the sport, and they knew what the only solution was. In the same February 2022, FIFA put out an official statement saying Russia had now been officially banned from all football competitions, and this one had severe implications too. Russia was scheduled to face Poland in a World Cup qualifying playoff semi-final on March 24th, and would have gone on to face either the Czech Republic or Sweden in the final round of qualification. But when the crisis and Russia's actions became too much, all three teams insisted that they would not play against the Russians even if they qualified, and ultimately Russia was kicked out of the World Cup. The ban extended to even club competitions and women's football too. Tough. Up to this point on, every time a country has been banned by FIFA, it has been related to either age issues or wars. But this next team got banned after their goalie tried to pull off the biggest magic trick in the history of the World Cup qualification. Roberto Rojas, Chile. It's like watching magic. Rojas is remembered in Chile for two things. On one hand, he's arguably the greatest goalie in the country's history, but on the other hand, he's also the guy that cost Chile a place in the 1990 World Cup. Going into the final match of qualification, the stage was set for Brazil and Chile. Chile needed to win to qualify for the World Cup, Brazil only needed a draw. With the way the game was flowing, it was Brazil on their home turf who seemed more likely to score. But on the 67th minute mark, everything changed. Rojas claimed the flare had caught him in the face, the same flare that had been thrown from the Brazilian fans. The reality of the situation had already set in. Brazil was going to get banned from the World Cup for failing to control their crowd, and Chile would qualify. This was the story. This should have been the story until something shocking happened. One photographer, an Argentine named Ricardo Alfieri, had managed to capture the exact moment the flare hit the ground, and the proof was there that it didn't in any way strike Rojas near his face. So how was he bleeding? Rojas later admitted that with the help of one of the medical staff, he'd snuck in a blade into his gloves and cut himself as soon as the flare hit the ground to make it seem like it hit him in the face. FIFA didn't waste any time. They quickly awarded a 2-0 win to Brazil, and Chile was banned from the World Cup that year and even the following edition because of Rojas' actions. Rojas was handed a lifetime ban for his actions, but in 2000 the ban was overturned. He almost got away with it, so close to performing the ultimate magic heist in football. Pretty sure you enjoyed this video and would love to see more content like this. Hit that subscribe button to Free Kick Corner so you don't miss out on the latest action.